Can't say on
No
there.
idea.
Okay.
It looked kind of phallic,
Looked like it had on-off buttons.
made by Hitachi.
I thought it was some type of deodorant or like rash roll-on cream,
That's
but
exactly
more
what it is.
feminine. Like for itchy, gross, like lady part problems. That's where my mind went.
Scrotum talcum.
Like a Vagisil roll-on thing.
And
didn't know
Wes
they did
just
this.
put streaming.
Oh yeah, Brian will talk about that.
Welcome to the Making Geeks
Magically.
podcast.
Speaking of that, no.
That's a good segue to our sponsor.
All right, so it looks like we're good.
Yeah, we're good.
We're good.
We're streaming. We're
Yep.
out there. People are watching us talk about scrotum talcum.
All right, let's do this.
What the hell is happening?
I know. What's up, everyone? Is once again that time for your daily week, your
Yeah.
weekly dose of geek.
Wow.
This is the Making Geeks podcast for makers, dads, and geeks. We are on episode 171.
This is what
How was
happens
every-
when we take a week off.
No, I think it just makes it for a little bit more fun. So, guys, how you doing?
Good.
Doing good.
Good.
I have my weekly daily dose of week today, so I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know even what date of the. I'm gonna stop talking. I'm gonna stop talking. You guys talk here. So what you guys been up to? Because we didn't record last week, and
Yeah.
I think we've all had other things going on. So, what's happening?
Well, it's nice to have heat. Last week, I was cold weather camping in western North Carolina where I had zero signal, which was nice to be disconnected for a little bit. Went camping with two other buddies, and it's an annual thing that we do. No kids, no wives, just kind of go out there and in mountains and kind of. It's car camping, so it's not super stressful. You can bring whatever, however many blankets you want, and it's sort of ridiculous. Cooking steaks and just enjoying nature and stuff, and then until nature's too much, like snows around you, and then you're like, well, let's put up some tarps and look like it's like was it Ernest Shackleton or whatever, like a cold weather expedition extraordinaire. We had like walls of tarps around us, like encapsulating the fire pit just enough to like let the smoke out, and it was like redneck engineering with like the lashing of the different cordage and stuff, and it was pretty fun.
See, you got the goatee going.
Yeah, I had a shaving mishap a couple days ago. This is only after 2 days of coming back. So I just took the clipper head off to dump it out mid-job, and then I forgot and hit the middle of it. Yep.
Didn't you have a shaving mishap just not too long ago?
Look, this is not about me, okay?
Are we gonna have to put like a Patreon reward, like another goal for a new user for you?
I just need like a sign behind me, like 56 days since Borg
So you
assimilation.
Wes a new trimmer.
Yep.
And when you get Sean a new clock/calendar,
Yep.
he'll be okay.
Speaking of shaving, this is a week without shaving. So this is as bearded as you're probably ever going to see me.
I see a little bit of a shadow there.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that was like
It's there.
anti-aliasing.
My
Couldn't
little
tell.
man hairs are trying to get out. They're like,
So is that like a 180 grit, 220? What is that?
yeah. My daughter hates it. She's like, ugh, stop.
My kids hate it when I shave, so.
Same here. My daughter cried last time I shaved.
My daughter does this thing now where she'll reach up and she'll like scratch my chin and cheeks. It's so nice. It's like a dog.
Yeah, so that's
See, we're having.
yeah. What happened to you guys?
I was in Chicago the last couple days. What day is it? It's Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
I was in Chicago long enough to not know what day it is.
Sweet.
So we left on Monday and got back Wednesday night. We had a collaboration with Rob Scallon. Do you guys know who Rob Scallon is?
Yep.
He's an internet
Guitar
guitar player who's amazingly talented. So we did a project with him where we modified a guitar, and he had to learn how to play it, and that was amazing. We got to sit in the studio and watch somebody learn how to play an instrument that they had never played before, and then moments later made amazingly beautiful music on it. It was I no one has seen Mozart play, but I am imagining this is what it was like to watch Mozart play. It was like a brand new instrument. They're like, oh hey, what about like if you were in Bill and Ted and you were in that music shop and Beethoven was playing on the keyboards and he was like, what is this? What is this thing? And then he just rocked out. That's what we got to witness. It was amazing. He's a super nice guy.
You got it on film.
Yep, I got it on a film. I got the yeah, it's going to be a video for us, a video for him, more of like him playing in the video for him, us building in the video for us. But we're going to do a behind the builds or between the builds video of like our whole time there. And it was fantastic. It was probably one of the highlights of one of the best moments that I can remember, like getting to witness in person. Super cool. Yeah, it was freezing cold in Chicago. I don't know if you guys know that about Chicago. It sucks. It's freezing. I almost died because it was so cold. It's freezing everywhere. Whereas I
How's
love you.
science
This is
and
why I don't.
surplus? Did you get a beaker?
No, I didn't get a beaker. So, Master of None, that we know from the community and I know him on Instagram, lives in Chicago and told us about this like surplus place of just wacky stuff. Some of it's like STEAM educated, education related. Some of it's like old teachers material. Some of it's like you can get like a fully functioning like model of a heart that you can like pump the blood through. It's a bunch of craziness. Like there's a whole bin full of like buttons, and then there's like random box of shoelaces, and it was an eclectic mix of craziness. And so I got a bunch of buttons because I like buttons, and yeah, it was kind of nuts. So we went there, and then we went to a music store, and I haven't been in a real music store in a long time. And I love playing music. I don't know if you guys know that about me. I haven't played music in a while since I left Georgia. And I made the bass, and I play it every once in a while. But like going back into a music store and just like seeing all of the gear and seeing I play the bass, and so like seeing all the basses that are there, and like that inspired the shape of the one that I made. Like it was so nice to kind of rekindle that whole weekend, or it wasn't even a weekend. It was earlier this week of music. It was all about music, all about playing music. It made my heart happy. So I'm coming back. And then this lady at church wants me to play bass in the band, like the big band that they have. So I'm going to go play every week now. Theoretically, I have to audition. I've never auditioned before. I was kind of nervous. But it's a song that I've played before, so I really shouldn't be all that nervous. But yeah, so it was a perfect mix of like making stuff and then my love of music that I haven't really got to express a lot lately, all smushed up in one cool collaboration project. Awesome time. So fun.
Cool.
No, that's cool. I haven't been up to a lot here over the last 2 weeks or so. Work's been taking up a lot of my time. I've still been working on the laser, trying to get it working and ready. I made some modifications based on some of Wes's recommendations for an adjustable platform. I got a new lens for the laser, and now I think I have to replace one of the mirrors. I think I burned out one of the mirrors. I'm not even sure how. So it's kind of a work in progress. It's got a mark on it. Try to clean it off and it won't come off. So I don't know if the mirror's damaged now or what. I'm going to assume that the mirrors that come with it aren't really high quality anyways. So
how would a laser have burned mirror?
I'm not going to pretend to know the cause of it or why I can't clean it. I just think that it's preventing the laser from working at a high enough level to cut through material. I can still kind of engrave. I can raster a little bit. I think I have an alignment problem just a little bit still, but I cannot cut through the same material I've been using, which is only like 1/4 inch, and I was cutting through it before. So I don't know what's going on there.
I don't think I've ever cut through quarter-inch material. I know the Glowforge can. I just never done it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, I
like
don't-
quarter-inch ply. It has a really, I don't even know where the stuff came from. I don't remember where it came from, but it has a really soft core. In fact, it might even be almost like an MDF core.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I've cut through it before,
Okay.
fairly easily. So I don't know. I have a couple things still to tackle, and hopefully this next weekend and the weekend after I'll have time because I have 2 3 day weekends in a row coming up. So hopefully I'll have something else to report and work on. Have you,
Sweet.
Donovan?
I've been getting back into the into the fray and making stuff. And so last week I made my Witcher leather-bound book, which I totally screwed up on it. I tried to hide it as best I could. There were two things I screwed up. One was the placement of the designs on the front were laser etched in the wrong place, and so it was way too far to the left. And so I'm like, oh man, do I like start over? Do I just go with it? I'm like, nope, I'm just gonna go with it. Mistakes happen. That's part of being a maker. I'm just gonna grow with it. And so I did that, and while I was painting it, the paint bled through on one of the designs in the cover, and I'm like, oh man. So I tried to fix it, and then I made it worse. I'm like, whatever, I'm just gonna roll with it. So mistakes aside, it actually turned out pretty cool. I liked it. I put the video up. It's been doing okay. It's been doing pretty good in terms of retention, not so much views, but in terms of people actually watching the video for longer than 1 minute and 51 seconds. So that's good. And now that that's done, I'm trying to get 2 projects done before Workbench Con. One being I'm finally going to tattoo these shoes that I've been sitting on for a year. And so I pulled the transfer paper out today. I got this, whatever you thought it was, mineral deodorant roll-on to ease with putting transfers on leather. And tonight I'm going to start tattooing these bad boys. So I want to get those done, and I want to get the Ninjago Mega Weapon done before Workbench Con. So
Do
Yeah.
you need a reminder about when Workbench Con is?
no, I know. I'm very aware. I'm very aware.
That
That
is
honestly, I think
2
the
weeks
Mega
away.
Weapon won't take as long, because I'm just gonna carve it. I'm not gonna try and do anything fancy, like implementing different strategies or trying something new like I've done with the other Ninjago weapons in the past. Brett McAfee suggested I get what's called a rasp, some kind of rasp.
The rasp
he was
is like
talk-
a big, super aggressive file.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I ordered one of those, and I think that's really going to help with that funky head look on the head of the weapon. And just need to hopefully find a piece of basswood that's big enough to carve, because that'll be easiest. If not, I'll have to figure out something else, maybe like cedar. I don't know. But I got the handle, I got the pommel. It started, and so if I can get the tattoo shoes, and if I can get the Mega Weapon done before Workbench Con, I'll be pretty happy. The Mega Weapon for sure, because whenever sponsors at Workbench Con be like, so how are your videos doing? I can be like, well, my most recent one is at 1 million, so that's pretty good. It may not be at 1 million by then, but I want at least that one to be my one before Workbench Con, so I can over exaggerate my numbers.
It'd also be kind of cool to have the video right before Workbench Con, and they actually see a recent video and what it's doing in real time.
Yeah, that's true. So that, honestly, I may upload that the day I leave for Workbench Con, depending on how things work out. So I can just spend my time in the airports just responding to comments or whatever. So we'll see. That
Nice.
I've been sick.
What else did you get playing in the snow like that?
Oh gosh. Well, I started getting sick on Monday. I thought it was just like a sinus infection, and so it was all kinds of like gunky horribleness. And then yesterday I was so happy. I was like on cloud nine. So I'm like, I don't care if I'm sick. I'm going to play in the snow. And I went and played in the snow all day. And oh my gosh, by that night, I'm like, oh, I'm dying.
We have to send you to the doctor so you can mark yourself safe from coronavirus.
Yeah. No, it was so funny. I was at the clinic this morning and every other word, it was so busy because so many people here are sick. And every other word out of everybody's mouth was coronavirus. And I'm like, oh my gosh. This is people are I don't know. I don't understand why people are so worried about it. I mean, I lived in Asia during the SARS epidemic and I know how bad it can get over there and knowing how it is, knowing how life is over there, I can understand why and how outbreaks happen. And then I can also understand why outbreaks never happen here. I mean, aside for flu. Because as much as people have been talking about coronavirus, everybody's like, nobody in the US has died of coronavirus, but there's like 8,000
No.
people this year that have died of the flu. So,
It's been contracted though. You know that people freak out.
no, I know. I know.
Logic very rarely, takes away from hysteria.
Yeah. So I'm feeling better. We're on the mends, but seasonal sickness.
Yeah,
Kinda
two of my
slow.
3 kids are super sick right now.
Really?
Yeah.
Yep. It's the time of year.
All shall fall. Well, Wes, we want to talk about what you were approached with?
I'm not sure. I feel like we've breached that subject before, but maybe we haven't.
We did a little bit.
We had a full episode talking about
Yeah.
related.
I don't know, talk about it, and we'll
Okay.
see what comes up.
Well, I got a email from a news channel. They wanted to feature a 3D printing expert to talk about how 3D printing worked for a segment they're doing in regards to 3D printing of guns. And they said, I don't need to know anything about the gun part of it or have an opinion, apparently, what the email said. But they would possibly interview me for the 3D printing expert thing, which is kind of cool to get that randomly in the mail. They're like the biggest news broadcaster here. They're like one of the oldest ones in the country, probably. They're really old. One of the big networks. So I don't know what all is entailing in that, or what's entailed, or anything. It's just like a small news segment. I'm not sure. I haven't responded to her yet, but I just posed the idea to you guys, do I want to get in a story about that? With the, I don't like the negative connotation that they're sort of playing off of. Not that I would have anything to say. Well, just, it's almost like not like a buzzword, but it's like anytime 3D printing's mentioned in the general public, not just in our maker group, that's the first thing. Oh, can you 3D print guns? It's sort of like the hot button kind of thing. That just, it's in some circles, I think it's getting a negative connotation over the technology.
So,
but
I kind of looked it up after you were talking about that, and
Yeah.
because I haven't been up to date on 3D printing guns and all that. I mean, I heard news on the subject back when it was at its heyday, but they're kind of, I don't know what people think when they hear of 3D printing guns. When I heard of 3D printing guns, I thought an actual pointed at Josh's head kind of gun, like an actual gun, shoot more than one round kind of gun. But the 3D printing guns that they've been talking about are these single shot, funky looking.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
Yeah, that started it. And there
That
was a
was- that's-
documentary.
Yeah, it's 3 or 4 years old now, at least.
Yeah, and so the thing that people are doing now is on an AR-15, on an automatic rifle or semi-automatic rifle. The lower receiver is the area that houses the trigger mechanism, and the catch that will keep the bolt that goes forward and backward has start selector, but it's also the piece that has a serial number on it. And so the current ATF regulations say that it has to be tracked, and that is indeed a firearm if it has a serial number on it. So that's how people are trying to get over on like how many guns you can possess. You can't track this weapon because it has no serial number, and so if you make your own lower receiver, which again, like guns come up in parts, the part that actually fires the round is in the upper receiver. The lower receiver is where you would place the magazine into, and it also is like your trigger and your safety, and sometimes the buttstock, depending on how you arrange it. But the deal now with 3D printing is people are trying to 3D print a lower receiver so that you don't have to buy one. It's not serial numbered. It's not really traceable if a gun is traceable in any real way. But instead of like the single shot nubbing looking goofy Nerf,
The Liberator,
gun,
or what
like
it was called.
kind of
Yeah, that was the one that I was looking at. I'm like,
Yeah. And so I haven't seen recent tests, but the most I've seen was somebody got 5 shots out of a lower receiver that was 3D printed.
Before it broke?
Before it broke, yeah. Before it develops, like, because guns have really, really tight tolerances for a lot of stuff. And with the heat and the impact, they tend to warp. And so that's the thing, is people are trying to develop the geometry of trying to make a lower receiver that could withstand, like, the uses of an actual weapon.
Well, see, the thing that confuses it, because I work for a company where they 3D print pump parts, but they do it out of PEEK. Is that what it's called?
Yep.
Which is like insanely high temperature, insanely dense, insanely durable material that, like, just the printers alone are tens of thousands of dollars to be able to produce these pieces. And when it comes to 3D, like, you couldn't print one of those lower receivers that you're talking about on like an Ender, could you?
You could, but it's not going to last very long. I mean, they're very small parts. PLA doesn't break, it tends to deform. Higher tolerance, or not higher tolerance, but like more durable plastics will do either of those things. It'll just break, or it'll start to warp. And when you have like the mechanisms on there, if you've ever taken apart a real gun, like Wes, I know your grandfather was a gunsmith. I don't know if you took apart weapons when you were in the Navy.
No.
But a lot of the M16 or M4 AR weapons, I mean, they're metal and it's oily and they have to catch. It doesn't take a whole lot for those catches to release, for the gun will actually fire. And so it's a lot of force. It's a lot of really tight tolerances. And I mean, the whole printing guns, which we've talked about before, like how ethical it is aside, it's complicated because it's a lot of small parts.
Right.
But it's not impossible.
But all that being said, I don't think we're that far away from it actually being legitimized, with the changes in some new changes in printing technology, the advances in different materials. I don't think we're that far away from it being a more dependable option. I think it's going to happen at some point. But I think that kind of gets away from what Wes wanted to talk about. But yeah.
Well, no, like on that, I was talking to Matter Hackers the other day, and I'd mentioned something about a filament that looked like metal. And they have a filament that is metal that you can print from a desktop 3D printer, and apparently you send off your print to some company, and they deburr and they sinter it, and then they send it back to you. And so I wonder if they have some type of policies or something in place where they won't print gun parts, or if they are
I'm
up
pretty
to date
sure
on the well, I'm saying if we were to develop, or if anybody were to develop
They would have to know what to look
geometry,
for. Yeah.
exactly. They
Well,
would have to be abreast of that.
have you guys read up on non-planar 3D printing?
Non-planar 3D, where that like goes up and down on the contour.
Yeah. Because I think that's the start of making geometry that could probably withhold it, because it's not going to be just the parallel layers. That technology is being developed to be more rigid and hold up. So that may be paired with some of the newer filaments might get, one step closer to being somewhat dependable. I mean, I don't know a whole lot about guns, but I do know about some of those advances that might make it possible sooner rather than later.
Well, Wes, like, I don't know if you've decided to do it or not, but I think your point, what you originally said about people like to point at 3D printing whenever they want like a buzz story about how dangerous the application is, or how free and open and you can just do anything, like maybe leaning into you can literally do anything with this. Like, you're focusing on guns, but there's also people that print prosthetics for free for kids that have no hands.
Sure.
Like, so because it is so open and can do whatever, it's up to the intentions and the desires of the user.
Yep.
So when people focus on just the bad things of this technology, you're completely discounting the amazing advances that have happened
Sure.
with the same piece of equipment.
I mean, it's just like
So-
any technology.
Yeah. So I think there's kind of like two things at play. So one, if you want to do this simply because, possibly getting some attention, some traction for what you're doing,
Right.
having your little, lower third down there that says, 3D printing expert next to your name.
Yeah,
is really
I mean,
cool.
that's a cool bullet point, right?
Right.
No
but
pun
then the other-
intended.
But then the other point is, do you, is part of your reason for doing this to argue for 3D printing and not have it be made this like deceptive practice that people should be scared of? And are they going to even let you have that narrative in the interview
Right.
for their, whenever they have their final edit?
Yeah, she
Yeah,
just
because they'll
says,
cut it to whatever
yeah.
Yep.
they want to cut it to.
And he says, I'm looking for someone to help me with a story who is a 3D printing expert. It is a story about 3D guns, and I don't expect you to want or to know how to make those. I just want someone who can explain 3D printers and how they work. Can you help?
We could go through this whole episode about the best strategy to legitimize and to equal the playing field, and they're going to be like, it's a glue gun that moves.
That's all I'm going to say. Yeah,
Thanks, expert.
right. Have you used a glue gun? Well, it's like that. I mean, I don't know. It's interesting.
That's a good point, but you could. I mean, it's journalism. That person
Yeah.
could have an intention already set in stone, or you could have a conversation with that person that may sway their decision. There's no way of knowing.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you feel about having 3D printing expert under your name?
I don't know. I don't
Is
think
that a badge of honor, or is it some weird thing that?
I don't know. I don't feel I really am an expert personally, but
Is that part
I
of
would
what's kinda
argue
holding you
against
to it, too?
that.
huh?
One. Sorry,
Take
Sean.
your turn.
Is that part of what's holding you up? I mean, there's a
No.
couple of things I know, but like one of them, like having expert there, is it something that
No, I think
gives
it's kind of cool.
pause?
I think it's
Okay.
kind of cool, but
I agree.
But I mean, I'm not downplaying what you're doing. Please don't take it this way.
I am already taking it that way.
Okay.
Please continue.
But what do you need to do to be a 3D printing expert?
I don't know. I was wondering how they came to that
Like,
conclusion.
You have designed your own models.
Yeah.
You have printed your own models.
Yeah,
You have
boom.
modified G code.
Yeah.
I asked that because it opens you up to
Oh yeah.
people taking pot shots, but at the same time, like, if that's a badge that you've earned,
Yeah.
like, wear it. But
Yeah.
then, what's the difference between I'm a medium level 3D printer,
Right.
the journeyman 3D printer, not yet a master?
Tradesman. Or,
So
yeah.
what moniker is he missing to not make him a 3D printing expert?
No, I'm not downplaying or saying that you are not a 3D printing expert. I'm just saying there could be people that by putting a grandiose title, whatever happens to be in your
Right.
name, for whatever reason, whether it's warranted or not warranted or whatever, like, especially in this community, people can start
yeah, sure.
being buttholes about it. But then I mentioned on the flip side, like, what does that even mean to be a 3D printing expert?
Yeah. And how do they find me? That's one thing I want to know.
I don't know.
It's kind of interesting.
You should wear some type of, oh man,
3D printed bow tie.
you
Kind of
should
just,
lean into this really hard and have like a lab coat.
yeah. Yeah.
Like, this is my special 3D printing jacket.
Yeah. Like I could have been like a cameo in like Pee-wee's Playhouse or something. Like,
Yep.
here comes Mr. West, the 3D
Put
printing
the
expert.
goggles on
Yeah.
and make sure that red stain on your cameras behind you are in the frame.
Yeah. It's like Beekman's World. You guys remember that show?
Yep. Would you be on the show?
I don't know. I don't know.
You gotta lean into this.
And also, like,
You gotta comb your hair all
like, there's several
sideways and have
layers
pocket
here, like,
protector.
are they gonna want to film me in front of a 3D printer? Like, am I gonna have to actually clean my shop? Like, I don't even know. Do I want to go down this rabbit hole? Probably not. I'm not sure.
You should
You should-
offer to
you should-
bring it to the studio
Yeah.
and like treat it like it's a piece of like hazardous nuclear material. Like, this thing can explode at any minute. It gets up to 400 degrees Celsius.
That's right.
You should troll them and just have like a Bonner Prize mini behind you. Like, that's your experience.
Yeah, the expert.
There's
Yeah.
a whole bunch of benchies. On the wall. You know,
Oh, they're pretty good. They're pretty cool.
Check out this Marvin. It's pretty good. Learned this one last night. Knew you were coming.
Yeah.
What's up? What's your name? You want a cookie cutter? Let's go check Thingiverse real quick. It's where all us experts hang out.
Yeah.
No big deal.
The Napoleon Dynamite or 3D printer.
Oh man, I kind of want you to be a character now.
Your mom goes to 3D printing college.
Just like speak with a really weird accent. 3D printers. The technology is still pretty new.
The filament can be infused with all kinds of different materials.
To say of a black belt in 3D printing. Yep.
Oh,
No, from my standpoint, because I am new to 3D printing, I put it together. I 3D print stuff. Half of it fails. I still haven't figured out how to not get it to jam. I consider myself very noobish. Noobish? Yes.
Okay. Yep.
Even though that thing literally has been on and printing every day since I've got it. So I'm working on my hours. I'm working on my flight time. I'm not a pilot yet, but I'm working on my flight time. But I look at Wes and like he has mass produced stuff. He knows how to alter G code to like make it ram the piece off of one print so that you can print it up. I don't know how to do any of that. And so from my standpoint, yes, Wes is a 3D printing expert because I don't know what else he would need to know how to do to not be a 3D printing expert. In my eyes.
Do you have your qual card?
Yeah, that's right.
Can stamp off, Wes?
That's right. Yeah.
You can make you a 3D printing qual card?
That'd be awesome.
You can earn
I
a
I
badge.
gotta 3D print it. Yeah.
Need your
I'm
rate.
curious if they contacted anybody else.
I don't know.
I'm just out of
Yeah.
curiosity.
That crossed
They
my mind too.
contacted- Yeah, more than you.
Mhm.
Who else is on that list? I'm just curious. Who
Yeah,
they would've-
locally. Yeah.
Did you
Have
ask
you
them how they came
responded
across
yet?
you?
I haven't responded
Yeah.
at all.
Ask them how they found you, or
That's what
like
I
who
was-
recommended you.
There's one guy that's in our. He was in the original I Like to Make Stuff group that I think. I don't know if he recommended me or not. I don't even know, but I know he works for that company. He's like he does like tech stuff for them. I don't know. He might have thrown my name in the hat or something. But yeah. Oh, I'll probably respond to her just to see.
Have
what
you
it's
just
about.
decided yet whether or not you're going to do it?
Yeah.
You have decided.
I'll probably do it. I mean,
Now it's
something
time
else.
to get your character ready.
That's
Well,
right. That's right.
Yeah,
Should
sure.
I
that
talk
link
with the
happened.
whistle? Want to use S's? S's?
You should just like close your eyes
Hey.
like this. Yeah, that's a great question, Kim.
It doesn't happen very often in situations like this, but maybe ask if there's a way you could see a cut of it before it gets aired.
Yeah.
Just the juxtaposition of your interview and whatever you say, along with whatever else they show.
But see, if I get labeled as a 3D printing expert, that means I can get called in as a like expert witness for a 3D printing gun case. See, I can see how this is going to go south, right?
No, it's when someone mass murders someone with 3D printed knives or
Yeah, then they're going to
3D
call
printed
Joel
airplane
Telling
falls
in
from
to
the sky.
testify for the.
Yeah, then you find out they tried to print it with a
prosecution.
MakerBot, and that's why it failed.
Couldn't print. I think you lean into it. I think you go full Beekman's World like you're talking about and get a lab coat. Get the whole thing. They think it's crazy. They don't understand what it is. It's some nerdy science stuff. So go full out caricature. Pinning, like make your own silly name tag.
Yeah.
Have little benchies all over the place. Speak with a funny accent. Don't open your eyes while she's talking. And just say, back to you, Norm, a bunch of times.
Not only that, but what company do you want to have an association with for like endorsement? Maybe is it Matter Hackers? Is it Prusa?
Right.
Hold their product while you're doing that. Actually, maybe not because of the gun juxtaposition. Never
Right.
mind.
Right.
That might work against you. Never mind.
Then I'm gonna get all kinds of DMs like, hey man, can you print me a gun? I saw you as a 3D printing expert on that piece.
Oh yeah.
That's true.
Yep.
And that would be my next question: is you would have your name. Do you
Yep.
want to associate how to find you online?
Right.
Because then you may be inundated with a bunch of stupid nonsense.
Yep. That's true too.
There's a lot of
Price
things.
to pay for fame.
That's
Stupid.
true.
I like stupid nonsense.
Don't
You
forget
just
us when
give
you're
yourself
famous.
a whole different name. Be the 3D printing mega awesome unicorn extravaganza.
What was it that Izzy used to call you? Swain?
What? I don't think he used to call
It-
me anything.
No, Izzy used to. He had
No, people
mispronounced your name.
used to call you West One.
Swan.
That's his last name. Izzy
Somebody
Swan?
called you West Swan. I don't remember who it was though. But yeah, 3D printers can do magical, wonderful things. And then there's also a group of people, when given the full freedoms to do anything, will do something to push the limits and push the boundaries. But you're overshadowing the millions of people across the planet who are doing good. Back to you, Norm.
I'm curious. So talking about journalism and kind of media this way, have you guys ever reached out to like local media, like newspapers or something, to get a story about yourself or what you're doing in the newspaper? It's kind of an old school thing. It doesn't happen as often anymore, but something used to happen. Like I remember when I was growing up. If somebody's doing something interesting in the town, then the newspaper does a story on them.
This RV magazine did a story on us when we went full time because of the renovation and all that. I think that's probably the only time that's happened. And then I got on the straight A honor roll the entire year, so I got to be in the newspaper.
Nice.
That was pretty dope.
I think I've been in a couple times, but growing up, like when I was a kid, I made the all-star team for baseball, so I was in the newspaper. And then when I was studying animation, we were the first program in the area to have, especially like computer animation, so I got interviewed for that for the local paper at that time, but that's a long time ago already, over 20 years ago.
I was in the newspaper in Richmond, Virginia, when I was like in first grade. There was like I think it was like a syndicated column called "Tell Me Why." It was like a book series too, and like kids could write in questions, and they would like feature different kids' questions. And mine was, "Why do cats' eyes glow in the dark?" And so like the author of that kind of nationwide segment or column, they would like reply to it, and then you get like a picture in the paper and all that stuff. So that was kind of cool. I remember them coming to my house when I was in first grade, and it was like around Valentine's Day, so I had like pictures of Valentines and stuff that I drew. I don't know why that stands out, but yeah, I'll have to find those and put them on my Instagram or something. They're pretty funny.
That's cool.
That was my little
2 years ago.
yeah.
2 years ago, the Fab Lab here was really trying to make a push for Maker Faire because it was their first year being a full-fledged Maker Faire instead of a mini Maker Faire. So they're really trying to get the word out. And Dan, the head of the Fab Lab here, had me go with him onto the news channel to talk about Maker Faire and to showcase some of the stuff that I've made and whatnot. And that was pretty fun. That and the magic wheelchair that I did last year for Maker Faire, we got on the news for that. Not naming me specifically, but my face was there. I was like, hey, I know that guy. Actually, I got a letter yesterday asking if I would do that again this year, and I said yes.
Cool.
So I guess it's a thing now. I'm doing it more than once. It's a thing.
Yeah, it's pretty
You're a
sweet.
wheelchair making expert?
Yeah. No,
Sweet.
I'm a foam carving wheelchair housing thing expert.
Mm-hmm.
Wheelchair
Yeah.
enhancer.
Yeah, that car that we did last year turned out really cool. I think so. I mean, I'm a little biased, but I thought it was really cool. I mean, the kid loved it. The people that we showcased it at Maker Faire had a big reveal with the tarp and everything, and we're gonna do that again this year with a different kid that nobody knows. None of the makers know yet, like what we're doing. I mean, we could be building an X-wing. We could be building a princess carriage. We could be, I don't know what we're going to be doing, but whatever it is, it's hopefully going to turn out cool.
Did you use 3D printing at all?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yep.
it was a combination of, I mean, it was a combination of everything: woodworking, metalworking, 3D printing, um, CNC. Because the front of the car, they wanted to make it look as much as a Dodge Charger as they could. So what they did is they found an actual model of the car and took the grill and took that light purple foamy stuff that a bunch of crafters use when building big sets and whatnot, put it on a CNC machine and put the whole thing out, and so the front of it looks like an actual car. The rest of it was all hand sanded and chiseled and carved and whatnot, but that front was CNC. So it was a combination of everything that went into putting all that together. A lot of electricity, like, because we had working lights and sirens and a bullhorn and like all that kind of stuff, like an actual cop car. And so, there was an electronic panel with all of the switches, just like they would have in an actual cop car, but just, scaled down. So yeah, it was a combination of everything. And when we do it again this year, it'll be a combination of of everything, I'm sure.
It's really cool.
Yeah. I've thought about trying to see if somebody wanted to write an article about the stuff that I do just to get word out, but I don't know. I've never taken that leap to try and like toot my own horn to somebody who would toot it for me. Does that sound right?
Well, see, it's really hard though because with a single video, like you potentially could get more eyes than a newspaper article, or more actionable eyes than a newspaper article.
Yeah, newspaper really isn't the way to go anymore. Although there's still Make Magazine. We have kind of like a tradition of trying to get everybody into it that we know. Somebody we know recently just got in, which is cool.
Oh, Bernie?
Yeah,
Yeah.
rightfully so. Does some cool stuff. But I mean, aside from Make Magazine, and aside from like what we do with the videos and our own social media, are there any other media outlets that you would like to get the attention of in a similar way that we would have done with newspapers years ago?
Media outlets.
I don't know about a media outlet, but when I worked at Lockheed, they had a relationship with some of the schools in the town. And these schools would put out all calls for people that just had like technical skills, and they had an after school club that I think I talked about this a long time ago that made these underwater submersibles.
Yeah.
And so they just put out like if people have these skills, and I went and helped out, and I was actually in a newspaper for that. But the people at Lockheed were like, "Oh, you're competent and you like to help people." And I'm like, "Well, yeah." And so they asked me to build this big. They had like a Steam Day thing, and they wanted me to build this really stupid, like, interactive thing. And I'm like, "That's dumb. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to make something cooler." So I made it, and they're like, "Oh, you have to do it again because that was cool." And then anytime it had to do with like STEAM education, they came to me, and I was like, "Well, I'm kind of busy and I don't want to do it." And they're like, "Well, you kind of have to." And they kind of abused that, right? But it was a point of pride that if they had something that they actually needed made, like I worked at Lockheed Martin with literal rocket scientists and these engineers that were engineers on paper, but in practice, they didn't really get to be engineers. And I would talk to them about building things and about Arduino projects and like really basic stuff, and they would have no idea what I was talking about. I'm like, "Oh, it's because you sat in a cubicle and you've just read manuals, or you have been the person that when something doesn't go quite right, but there's procedures to correct it, they have to ask you first. Like you're there as a procedure more than a technical expert."
Yeah.
And I remember they wanted to start up a makerspace because a lot of other Lockheed campuses have one, and we worked on a Navy base, so it wasn't our own native building. I'm like, "Well, I know all about doing that, and this is what you need to get." And they're like, "Well, that's way too expensive. We're not going to do it." And so I gave them some recommendations to get something cheaper, and then they pretty much just said no. But then they wanted to get a 3D printer, so they came back to me and they asked me my opinion, and I kind of led them in a certain direction. But it was only going to be for engineers. I'm like, "Well, this is ridiculous." And then like, "Why wouldn't everybody have access to this?" So they're like, "Well, because they don't need to build stuff." I'm like, "You don't need to build stuff." And so that point about like maybe not getting out to different medias to put your name out there, but I think in a little kind of community, I take personal pride over being that person like that that people go to, and
Yeah.
it's kind of weird because I have stiff competition around here with Mr. Bob Claggett, but like we know that literally people come up to us all over the place and like, oh, I have this problem that there's no known solution in the wide world. I know that you guys can do this.
I do that every week with you. I see it sometimes.
Yeah, and it's really that I get a lot more pride out of. Than I know we've talked about like TV shows and people getting like casting auditions and all this, and I talked to Bob about it because I feel some kind of way like auditioning for a show, and I'm like I don't want to put myself out there on social media, and that be the draw.
Right.
Like I just want to be competent enough to I want to beat all of the people because I have all of these skills. And he's like, well, they don't go out looking for the most competent person. They go out looking for the person they can find. I'm like, well, that's a good point. He's like, so if you want to be noted, then you have to be showy and you have to have the newspapery kind of articles and SEO like connections rather than just being the most competent person in the room. And that's what I struggle with. But I think the point of pride that I have is like the stupidest idea somebody can come up with, they can come and tell me, and I can probably figure out how to do it.
I don't know about like any kind of print article, but I think my dream collaboration or like getting my stuff out there would probably be the Muppets. Yeah. Oh yeah. See.
Yeah, that would be amazing. I would trade one of my childs to do that.
Your child's.
Yeah, it'd probably be the Muppets. Although I'm like having worked for Disney and knowing all the different entities and the people and whatnot that go into that company, regardless of what feelings you have for them, any kind of collaboration with Disney, I think would be fun. But specifically the Muppets.
Yeah, that would be
definitely
another level of coolness.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what could you do after that? I mean, you might as well just hang it up after that. Just move right along, you know?
You know, I think for me, it would be getting the green light for official licensing, like being able to, you know, getting like the real go ahead and permission to make products under a license, like whether it was for Valve or for Disney, especially like Star Wars or like Harry Potter or something along those lines, to create kind of like a one-off type of item that is specific to one of those, you know, one of those franchises would be kind of cool.
So being an Imagineer is your...
Yeah, but I was trying to, I don't know. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I mean, that's not beyond the scope of reality.
No.
I mean, I got to make that arcade cabinet for Mortal Kombat.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the Avengers Endgame thing, like, people still don't watch that video, and that bothers me intestinally. But the cabinet thing, that's how that happened. And I think the disparity I had between, like, the company and the builder, like, those guys are just dudes with an idea. And they just want it made. Mm-hmm. And I remember listening to the briefs that those guys gave us, and I was like, if they had a neighbor that was like, yeah, I could make that, they would go to that person. And so people are like, oh, it's because it was that I like to make stuff. Like, well, yeah, because they wanted visibility or whatever. But, like, if you have a person or a property that you really idolize, like, make that thing for them. Send it to them. And they're going to be super stoked because if they're working with their hands or if they're I know, Donovan, you email a whole bunch of people every time you make a thing.
Yes, I do.
Like, you should send them
I do that all the time.
Send it to them.
Send it to them, though.
Because I am running out of shelf space for all the stuff I make.
Yeah, because when we made that cabinet for them, I don't remember where they were saying it was going to end up in the lobby of the video game company that made it. Yeah. But, like, a lot of people who make digital assets are super stoked that there are people that can actually make their thing in real life.
Yeah. When I worked at Epic, there was a 2-story tall fiberglass statue of a character from Unreal Tournament.
And if you were to charge a prop house to make that, they would charge a buttload of money. Yep. And not to say that you should go out and just make a bunch of free statues or make a bunch of free things for people that you like in hopes of, like, making it big. But talking to a bunch of companies, they love the reliability of someone that they know can make something. They love the relationship that like, ooh, I wonder if we could make a blank, and then they search their empty imagination for the list of people that they know that can make stuff. And they'll usually go to YouTube to go people who make things, and then Bob's channel or Bobby Duke's channel or Jimmy Durest's channel, whoever comes up. And a lot of people don't get that opportunity. But if they have a thing already, they're like, well, that dude made that thing for us. Ask him if he's willing to make something else. And so I say it's not beyond the scope of reality because it really isn't. Like that Mortal Kombat thing just happened to work out, and we got to make the cabinet. And honestly, we just remade, or I got to design the cabinet this time instead of Bob. But it's just we just did it again.
Right.
But if there's a property that you enjoy and that speaks to you, and you have the ability to like actually make that thing real,
Yeah.
you could make it real, put it on the internet for the relatively small channels. That company, that person, the people who actually make that thing may never have known that you did that.
You basically just described my intention of anything Nintendo I've ever made.
You know, we have a friend that gets to do that somewhat for a living, working for Thingergy.
Oh yeah, Sarah does a lot of digital stuff for them. I don't know how much of like physical assets that she gets to make.
No, I know, but just that production of that place is kind of like what we're talking about in a way. Because I imagine
Yeah, but that's like a prop house.
it is,
That's
but
like yeah.
I imagine that Frank Ippolito started kind of small and it grew into that, of course. But I'm pretty sure that was probably the trajectory.
Yeah, that little clip thing I made for Red Bull was
Yeah.
there was somebody, I don't remember how he found us, but he was in a production company and was like, I need somebody to make this thing because I don't know if it exists. And so I don't remember, he like cold emailed us, was like, hey, you guys make things, can you make this thing for me? It's for Red Bull. It's going to be in a commercial with a prominent whatever athlete that they called it. And Bob was like, I don't have time to do this. They didn't say it by name. But he was like, hey, do you want to make this thing for this company? I'm like, yeah, sure. So I called him. I'm like, all right, what do you want? And what do you need? And I didn't even think about money because I was so enamored that like an actual, I say actual, like production company, which could have been a dude and his friend with a camera is a production company. But it sounded neat and I was up for the challenge. And then they go, hey, if we need some more stuff, do you mind if we call you back? I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. It's not a big deal. And that was just the most happenstance thing. So tagging people in a post or writing people emails is cool. An email with a picture on it,
Yep.
I would imagine would not be as impactful as me having a box with that thing in front of me.
I mean,
going, "That's great."
or you can make a rocket ship themed changing table and be sponsored by Bordeaux's butt paste. I mean, the sky's the limit, and you can set your mind to whatever you can
Not a
achieve
bad
it.
claim to fame.
No, I mean, hey,
But I mean, like for ongoing sponsorships, that process probably wouldn't work out so well because people in our space, you have a lot of competition for those sponsorship dollars. But people who know nothing about building things, companies that make digital products, production houses that work on like a movie or something to that effect, making a real tangible version of something that they have, it's something they can show off or something they can play with that they didn't have to pay for. And they're like, what? Somebody made this thing. Look at this. Joe, check it out. Then go, hey, man, I can make all kinds of stuff. If there's anything else that you guys are thinking of, think of me. Hugs and kisses. Making Geeks.
There
You
go.
have no idea how like crazy my brain is going right now.
No, we can see it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I'm like, I need to start doing research on like who to send stuff to. Cause I mean, I make this stuff anyway. Like, even if I didn't have the intention of like sending it to anybody, I make it anyway.
How cool would it be for you to take that Witcher book that you made and send it to Henry Cavill?
See, I wouldn't do that. I would not do that. I would
Okay.
do that. No. Because Henry Cavill has you're talking to the face. You're not talking to the people that make decisions. You're not talking to the people that actually make the show. You're talking to the nipples on the screen. Like, don't aim there. Aim at the production assistants. Aim at the producers. Aim at the people who make the property. Aim at the guy who wrote the book or the design the logos. Like, aim there because they're the people that are going to make the next thing. Henry Cavill's going to go off and be Superman again maybe in the future and never need a thing. Or he gets so many pictures of like his face, or like, I remember that one time you did that thing in Mission Impossible, it was so great, and I could be super tired of hearing about it. But the person that wrote Mission Impossible, or the screenplay that made Mission Impossible, is way more proud of that thing than the actor is that starred in it and then went off to do something else.
Yeah.
Well,
See,
well,
like
no,
when
'cause
I
it-
did.
I think that
No.
asks, begs for another question though. Then, are you sending it to the person because you want the visibility of that person holding it up and say, "Hey, Donovan made this thing for me," or is there a different reason behind it? Because you can
That's
get
a
two
good
different
question.
results.
Because
So
Kyle Toth did that recently. He made a vase and sent it to Brad Leone, and Brad Leone put it in an Instagram story. Brad Leone's not going to call him back and go, "Hey man, I want to make a whole line of vases," because Brad Leone is a woodworker. He just wants to say thank you. So I think that's a very good. What is your intention? Is your intention to get repeat business, or is your intention to get
There you go.
somebody holding up your thing, going hooray, and get a couple extra likes?
no, see, like my intention would be, I mean, to build relationships. Because back when Casey Neistat was doing his daily vlogs, he would have his mail, he would open packages, and people would send him stuff because they knew he would open the package, say their name, show the thing, but that's all it ended up being. And I even remember Evan and Caitlin, when they were first starting, they made a 3D printed elk, deer,
Yeah,
some
the
kind of
deer
animal.
thing.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
deer thing, and sent it to Casey Neistat, and sure enough, he showed it on one of his videos.
William Osmond sent
And-
him something too that he got a lot of attention for.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
See,
was
the
stupid.
thing,
It
like
was.
the thing that I would want to do would be to. I mean, the reason why anytime I do a project with any particular IP or property, and I go and I write the people that are involved in that emails, I haven't sent anything to them yet, is to try and build a kind of relationship where we could do something together in the future. That's my intent. Not so much to have them hold it up and say, hey, yay, and get a few extra likes. Like I want to be able to work with people. I'm lonely in Oklahoma. I want to collaborate.
So what Josh was talking about before is really close to advice that was given to me a couple of years ago from a friend of mine who works for a big marketing and ad agency here in LA. And it was simply to find a property that you want to work with or work for and make a video for them, or make the product and get it in their hands. Because if you show them a picture of what you made, they're probably not going to have the same appreciation for it as, like Josh was saying, send it to them. They can have it in their hands. You can't have a full appreciation for a picture as opposed to holding the actual object.
Yep. Because I mean, in the world of Instagram, they can flick. Anybody can flick through so many pictures. Go, that's cool, and then keep flicking. You get a package. You get an actual piece of mail that has your name on it, and you pick it up, and it's the character. I mean, this mono racer thing that I made for that artist that we found at Maker Faire, I thought it was cool. He asked me, and he wants to pay me for one. He wants me to make a kit so that I can send it to him, and so that he could paint him
I
up.
was gonna ask you whatever happened to that.
See? Exactly.
But then again, you got to go to the right people.
Yeah.
Like sending something to Tom Holland. I bet, how many things do you think Tom Holland has received that are Spider-Man related? About a bajillion. And he doesn't want to be typecast as Tom Holland or as Spider-Man. So that's not the person to go to if you don't want the likes or the views or whatever. Like Casey Neistat. If you sent a 3D printed elk head, which was a product that they sold, to Casey Neistat, oh, that's neat. I think their hopes was maybe he would hang it up in this thing, and then people go, what is that thing? And he maybe showed a card for like a flash of a second, and maybe that would drive some sales. He's not going to look at that and go, you know what? I need more of those elk heads. Who made that elk head? I need to go back to them. And so you got to go to the right person. And this is, I think, Sean, like you talked about wanting to make something for a license. This is probably not something that's going to go on shelves forever because there's companies that do that. It's like internal, like gifts for people or specialty one-off items for like a special occasion.
No, it's kind of like a hobby license anyways, but yeah.
Yeah, I remember at Lockheed, Lockheed had like this Chinese company that would make like keychains and blankets and crap. And then this one guy who was a woodworker made some pens for people. And it was like, it would say Lockheed Martin Space System, and it would say somebody's name. And they were like, that's amazing. It's a personalized thing that you made. Can you make 150 of them for all these people? And so it was like an inner office kind of reward kind of deal. It wasn't going to be on shelves, but you would be in with that company. And then when they wanted something else, they're like, oh, is it possible for you to make a whatever? They go, yeah, it is. Now we have a budget for this. Can you help us out with this thing too? And so you're showing people a capability, but again, you got to show the right people. Because if you were to give a Lockheed Martin whatever pin to the CEO of Lockheed Martin, she's gonna look at that pin and be like, "Yeah, I know. I work at Lockheed Martin. I don't need a pin that tells me that." Like, thanks. But then going to production assistants or the people in the actual production house, like, get deeper than Henry Cavill. That's what I'm saying.
Like the screenwriter.
Yeah, because you look at all these.
That's what I
behind
did
the-
for my
yeah.
Spider-Man stuff. Is I went to the screenwriter and the 3 directors to show 'em my little Spider-Man headphone stand. One of them wrote back and it's like, "Hey, that was really cool."
But that's all you got out of it.
Yeah,
That's the
no,
problem.
that's all I got
That's
out
all
of it.
they got out of it too.
Yeah, it's true.
You gotta think like reactions are reciprocal. Because, okay, case in point, some person on Instagram just made a stinking post where he drew me and Anthony and Bob and Forby freehand. Like, what? Why? That's crazy. It's crazy talented. Like, it's an actual piece of paper this dude drew. It blew my mind. But that's all it is. It's an Instagram post. And so I go, that's cool. And that's it.
You should have sent it framed to you guys.
And if somebody sent a frame, they would be a little like, okay, I don't know what to do with this because it's a hand-drawn picture of us, which is a little weird, but still a gracious sentiment. And I would probably want to reciprocate that gracious sentiment with something else. Look at that. Can you see that craziness?
Yeah.
Look at people in live chat can see this in YouTube video. There's somebody drawing me, and I don't know how I feel about that. But again, if that was sent to us, I would go, okay, this is kind of weird because I'm not worthy of being drawn. But I would send that guy some stuff and a very heartfelt thank you.
You know, Jimmy DiResta, I think, just had a post last week where he was talking about a guy getting a tattoo of Jimmy DiResta's face.
Yep.
And he's like, what?
That was inevitable.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh, my brain is going crazy right now.
What are you guys geeking out about?
I'll go. Oh,
No,
I keep
good.
interrupting you. I am
No,
so
go ahead.
sorry.
Good.
It's not intentional, I promise.
Yeah, good.
So speaking of Instagram, I can't remember how. No, I do remember how. There's a guy I follow on Instagram that is really into Monkey Island, and I'm really into Monkey Island, and he creates these little bee creations of different characters from it. And he's sent me talking about it. He sent me one in the past, which I still have hanging up at my shop. And anyways, he is creating a new creation based on this indie game that he came across. And I saw the post and I went to go research this indie game, and it's called Clio. This guy, I'm pretty sure it's in Germany. This guy in Germany, no experience in the industry or like how to do anything, decided that he wanted to make a retro-looking point-and-click adventure game, kind of like Monkey Island. And so he is going through, he's learning coding, he's learning animation, he's learning drawing, all this other kind of stuff. And he is creating this entire game all by himself. And I went and I looked through all his stuff, and I've talked to him on Instagram, and it's just fascinating how dedicated he is to making this thing into reality. And it's super cool seeing him go through the process of learning everything and the trial and error. And I just wrote him today asking if he's going to have any kind of like beta release of the game, because I'm excited. I don't know how far along it is, but there's this game called Clio, or Chloe. Clio? I should know the name of it. I think it's Chloe. And it looks fascinating. I've been geeking out about that and how passionate this guy is about learning everything he needs to do to create something, to bring something into the world. And it's just really inspiring. So that's what I've been geeking out about.
I'm geeking out about my son, actually. A couple months ago, I talked about that he had. I was kind of proud of him. He produced his first stop motion animation. It was a PTA contest called Reflections, and all the results came in. So he took first place in district,
Nice.
and then he took third place in region, which I think is all of Southern California. So
Wow.
pretty proud of the little
Congratulations,
bugger.
Mark.
Yeah, little turd.
Turd
Donovan,
doesn't.
have we spoken since the scavenger hunt ended?
No, that would have been last week.
Okay, I'm gonna geek out about your scavenger hunt, even though unfairly I did not win. Actually, no, it was quite fair. I got stumped at the very last minute, and I got passed. Had a flat tire right before the finish line, but that was fantastic.
It was
Uh,
fun.
Your scavenger hunt was amazing. Look forward to it. I responsibly neglected my children for most of the day or most of the afternoon whenever it would come out. The amount of attention and the amount of forethought you gave to that was astounding. And everybody who knew about that and who didn't play missed out. And those who did play were should be super grateful that you put that out. You did a
Yeah,
fantastic
and
job.
speaking of which, Clint from C3D Prop Shop, who we talk about on this podcast almost every week at the end for being our top sponsor here on for Patreon for the podcast, won, which I think is fantastic because it's a person who wasn't going to go, who now is going to go because he he was really good at puzzles. So that's exciting. It's gonna be cool to see him again. We saw him last year at Maker Faire. He's gonna come hang out with us at Workbench Con. He can now because he's got a ticket to it, and I think that's super cool.
That is cool.
Yeah.
Well deserved.
Yeah,
Quick question
so-
before Wes talks about his geeking out. Donovan, did you ever get a number of how many so-called active people there were trying to doing your treasure hunt? I'm just curious if you were able to get that info.
So the preliminary treasure hunt that I did, there were 6 people that did the treasure hunt. The Workbench Con treasure hunt that I did at best guess between the people that were on Discord, the people that DM'd me, and the people that would respond to posts and things like that. I think there was about 24 people
Cool.
that did it all the way through.
That's awesome.
And depending on how many people come to my class at Workbench Con, it may be, that we'll see how much engagement I get for that treasure hunt. So if you're going to Workbench Con.
Are we part of this?
Mm-hmm.
Should I not say that I'm part of it? Should I be cool?
No, you can if you want to. I mean, it's probably going to be no big surprise considering we conspire on a weekly basis anyway. But yeah, you're part of it.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't much like people, so I'll put on a face in the name of games. But that means I can't play. Which I'm kind of
No,
bummed
that's
out
why I
about.
asked you if you wanted to. If you don't want to, so you can play, I'm fine with that. That's fine. I'm cool with it. This treasure hunt is also kind of a way to force people to talk to other people and engage with people that are going to be at Workbench Con to try and figure out the puzzles. So I don't know. We'll see how well it works out. It may not work out. It may work out. We're going to find out in 2 weeks.
Well, I might bring some swag then. I might bring some I like to make stuff items so that if I am a stop along this treasure hunt, it can be incentivized with other things too.
And I have a exclusive limited edition, not one of a kind, because I want to make more of them. But I've got some swag, a present, a prize that I'm going to give away that I think is pretty cool.
Interesting.
Wes, what are you geeking out about?
So the Raspberry Pi Foundation has an annual event that they sort of sponsor in a way. You can hold what's called a Raspberry Jam, and it's sort of like a meetup in a location around the world, and you can submit your date and location and information of when this meetup will happen to Raspberry Pi, and they'll send you a box of like swag and stuff, and they'll add your location to like a worldwide map that they have on their website to indicate where there will be one. It's similar to, they used to have these global game jams. They were kind of in a similar kind of feel. And where the local maker group, the Triangle Area Makers that I am a primary organizer for, we registered to have a Raspberry Jam here in Cary, North Carolina, and we're the only one in North Carolina as of right now for 2020, which is cool. And we're going to have it on Leap Day, which is kind of neat. So they sent like some t-shirts and some stickers and other little things, and we're collecting different Raspberry Pis. We're going to have people come and bring like projects that they've worked on, and have areas that set up for people to mess with like the GPIO pins and learn how like you can get like LEDs flashing with Raspberry Pis and all the functionality. So both for people that have used one before and have never used one before, to sort of share the love of Raspberry Pi kind of stuff. And it's their 8th birthday this year on Leap Day, so that's when we're having it. So it's kind of cool that we're not really recognized, but it's like another feather in the cap for the local maker group in a way. So it's kind of neat.
Awesome.
Yeah, so we're excited about that. So we had George from Technically Woodworking, who's in our chat. He's local to me, and he comes over once a week. On Wednesdays we get together, and we've been working on a photo booth, which is not terribly awesome in all the Raspberry Pi projects, but it's a very easy one to get people like get their mind around like the stuff you could do with one. And we have some other little demos and stuff we're setting up for it, so it should be cool.
Waiting to see if Donovan's okay here.
Donovan's dying.
Yep.
He's coughing very loudly in a very uncomfortable looking way.
It's rude.
So I must make use of this time and remind everybody that if you visit our website, makinggeeks.com, you can get a hold of us right there from the contact page. You could send us any questions or requests and ideas you have for the show. And on the homepage of the site, you could listen to all of our all of our past episodes there on that homepage at makinggeeks.com.
And all of us are highly engaged on social media independently for the stuff that we create outside of the world of the Making Geeks podcast. So if you want to see Sean's stuff, he can be found over at Geek Builders. Wes's stuff can be found at Geeksmithing. Josh's stuff can be found at Josh_MakeStuff, or his collaborative stuff with Bob at I Like to Make Stuff, and that can be found at Once Upon a Workbench.
And we'd like to thank our patrons over at patreon.com/makinggeeks for their financial contributions, which keep the show running, including our top patron, who we've mentioned, as you said, in pretty much every episode in the last couple years, it feels like. C3D Prop Shop, thanks for being our top patron and believing in us with your contribution.
And we record this episode live on YouTube every Thursday around 9:30 Eastern Standard Time here in the States. So if you want to get in on this conversation with the fun people that are in the live chat right now, you can head on over to our YouTube channel at Making Geeks Podcast. And if not, the episode will be out every Saturday to your podcast player of choice. And from the four of us to all of you in the wide world, we hope you have a fantastic week.
See ya.
Later.
Take care.